I'm a disruptor. I'm here to disrupt your normal patterns of thinking and make you think differently, to wake you up to the potential of who you might be and how you operate in this realm and time. Watching people rediscover and discover themselves fully for the first time. That's what keeps me going.
Hello, and welcome to the Menopause Mindshift Self-Love Podcast, where we are shifting the way women do menopause. I am your host, Lisa R. Triggs, best-selling author and motivational speaker, as well as, of course, podcast host. So today I'm continuing my conversation with the Ariel Balfour, and you're in for a real treat. Ariel provides alternative and holistic services. She's helping driven entrepreneurs get over their bullshit and live a life of success and freedom. So she provides us some really insightful information and a couple tips and tools on how to bring yourself back to the present and keep yourself focused on your goals and in the moment. Tell me more about Ariel and what makes you tick.
I think what makes me tick more than anything is making a difference, setting people free from the constraints of society, the family upbringing, demographics, socioeconomics, anything, whatever the constraints are that are put on people, to let them know that those constraints don't control who they are. I believe that we are unique individuals that have the capability to be wide open, to be free to express ourselves, but we have been conditioned so heavily and continuously conditioned to stay asleep, to, and I'm not talking about woke culture. I'm not in that. That's a whole different ballgame. What I'm talking about being awake is, being awake to the constraints that are keeping you stuck, being awake to who you truly are and your authenticity of being feral and free. Because the society, government, like whatever you want to call it, they don't want you to be feral and free, because a society that uniquely thinks on their own can create anarchy, can create chaos. But chaos for who is always the question I ask. So, like, for me, I'm a disruptor. I'm here to disrupt your normal patterns of thinking and make you think differently, to wake you up to the potential of who you might be and how you operate in this realm and time. But that's what keeps me going, is like watching people rediscover and discover themselves fully for the first time. Because when I figured that out very young, at a very, very young age, I was like, I knew instantly my life was going to be a lonely road for a lot of it, because I was not the same. I was built differently. And I think that knowing that so young allowed me the freedom to want to help other people do the same, because although it was a lonely road to begin with, it is a very free space to be.
I wonder sometimes if those of us who have experienced trauma, and I know most of us in the world who, no one has a perfect life, right? And there are various forms, various stages, and so of what we term trauma. I find that we are ones that more have the drive, the ambition to change other lives, to make a difference in other people's lives. In my case, it's like, I want women to make sure that, not to go through what I did and get to those lows kind of thing, right? That's what drives me. It makes me put the tiara on and all that kind of stuff. We all have something that drives us. What is it that drives you? Is it that desire to make a difference? The desire to share? I know, because you have education as well as personal experience, right? To back you up.
Yeah, so I think if we're talking about what drives me, my education is my education. And the only reason I got the education is because no one was listening until I got the education. And that's just one of the constraints that is put on our society, that we value letters and money above actual knowledge, wisdom, and experience. And so I think that what drives me to be a disruptor in this time and space is that I see so much wrong happening in our world that I cannot sit by idly and let it happen. I cannot sit by idly as I watch people lose themselves to their trauma, to their belief systems that have been conditioned. 90% of the beliefs that we hold within our bodies are not our own. They were projected onto us, conditioned within us, And I think that when we can step away from that and actually learn who we are outside of those, that's when true freedom happens. And that's what drives me is to create the internal freedom. And I might not be able to change the world in this lifetime, but I can certainly start the tidal wave. That's what drives me is that, people underestimate the power of one. They underestimate dropping that pebble from a high up distance into a pond and watching that ripple effect take off because like tsunamis happen from a shift that pulls all the water back and then it comes in like a surge. And that's what I'm doing. I'm disrupting the energetic pull to create a tsunami effect. Because as we individually wake up, as we individually start to step into our power, that's when real change starts to happen. And right now, that is what drives me is helping people to realize that they're essentially in the matrix, right? Not in the sense of the movie, but we are essentially in a matrix of conditioning and being robotic and giving up our power to things that we believe that can control us when in reality they don't. People's opinions do not control you. Your upbringing does not control you. Look at Sylvester Stallone is a really great example. Homeless, writes the screenplay for Rocky. They ended up buying it. His only condition was that he played the main character, right? And then he became famous. He did not allow his constraints to define who he was going to become. And that's what drives me is I want to do that for people to show them that they can become anything that they actually want to be as long as they step outside of these constraints that have been placed on them.
Have you ever heard of, well, there's a book, right? Feel the fear and do it anyway.
I really like the quote from Maverick, "Don't think, just do." Because thinking is what's gonna self-sabotage. Thinking is what's gonna hold you back because now you're taking in the opinions of others, you're taking in the what you believe to be true versus actually doing what feels authentic to you. And so a lot of the time, it's like my best content, my best ideas, my best courses have come from "Don't think, just do." And this is why as a speaker, I make a difference, and this is why I'm so natural at speaking because I don't come up with a speech prepared, I just speak. I don't think, I just do because this is who I am. I don't come in scripted because if I come in scripted, I'm now taking in, well, what does this mean? Where does this go? And that is going to lead to an inauthentic voice. I mean, really, this is what drives me is just complete authenticity and not the version that is being sold to you on social media right now where they're like, just learn to be your most authentic self, but do everything as I do, right? Like when I say authentic self, I mean whatever that looks like. Girl, you want to show up in a messy bun and swear 1,000 times in a 1 minute video? Do it. If that is what moves you because people feel frequency, they don't feel empty words.
I totally agree because we live too much outside and thinking about what other people's opinions. And I had the same thing happen to me recently, right? I was trying to speak and I got caught up in the fact that I was trying to memorize something instead of just coming out. I was trying to make sure I made down, these certain points. And I started to get tripped up. My mind just ended up going totally blank for a second. And then later I figured out that I was actually starved, that, I was like, oh, well, he also didn't eat it. But anyway, it's same type of thing. I got tripped up in conforming instead of worrying about just being me. So then, I'm going to have to reevaluate and say, is this the right place I should be then? Or should I just be going off and, you know, doing my own thing?
I watched you pivot. I watched you try to pull from the memory, and then I watched you shift into authenticity of just speaking from your heart. And I will tell you right now, my personal opinion is I will listen to you fully every single time from your heart. I don't know if I would have been as captivated with the script because I felt your heart. I felt your genuine power behind what you were saying. And this is what I'm saying. Like, we all strive to have this perfection, right? Like, we all strive to create this perfect image for the world of what we think they want, what we think that they need, what we think that is expected of us. But the minute we can just say, no, this is who I am. And like, I did that on my last speech in Vegas, is like, I came prepared with a suit, like I was told. I came prepared to talk with no swearing. And then I said, fuck it. That's not you. And that's what happened to me. And this is what I'm saying is your authenticity is everything. Your authenticity is everything. And I think that's where you need to go from.
It's a fine example. It happened to me. I had to step into my authenticity. And once I did that, like you said, then it was a go. It's like, okay, you know what? I know I just have to tell my story. Like, this is the story, and I tied it into this, right? Because then I started to worry, am I tying into? So I was being inauthentic to myself. And once I stepped into, like you saw, that, and with your encouragement at that time as well, once I stepped into my own authenticity, then I flourished. But that's who I am, and that's who I need to bring, and that's who I think everyone who's listening, and they don't forget it. That's who you are, that's what you bring to the table, and it's okay. Like my message in that particular talk, and it is still now, you're forging your own path. You are as well. We're forging our own path. We're trendsetters. We're making our own. We're unique, and that's okay because that's what makes us stand out and stand apart. And that's okay too. We can't let society or anybody else, rules or regulations or the outside world tell us that that's not okay when you know in your heart that that's who you are.
I think that that's where true death comes from. Being somebody who has died 3 times, I can tell you it's not scary. It's not scary. But what is scary to me, like what I fear more than anything, is living a life as a fraud, as somebody who is not being my most authentic self, to have my voice silenced. That terrifies me because true happiness, true freedom comes from being able to step 100% into who I am, how I think, how I talk, how I move, and being able to do it without apology. To be able to say that, like, yeah, I swear like a fucking sailor. I do. I really do. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because it's just a word. Again, that's a story that was placed on women that it's not ladylike to say these words. That's swearing like a sailor. These were constraints put on us to make us compliant, to make us soft. I mean, if kids these days can say things like 6'7" and that be an expressive term, what is wrong with saying the word shit, fuck, hell, whatever? It doesn't matter. It's just a word. It's a thing kids do. I don't even know. There's so many different explanations for it. There's so many different ways that things can be expressed. And it's the connotation that you put behind it. It's the perception you put behind it. So if you perceive that as a bad word, then that's your own perception, but that is yours and yours alone, not the actual truth. Everything in this world is not true. It is based in perception, and perception is only true to you. So what I believe to be true for me is only true for me. It is not true for anybody else. And therefore, I cannot expect other people to believe as I believe because only that reality is true for me. This is why if you take 10 people who witness the same incident, all 10 people will have a different opinion on it, remember different things. Some people will remember the person wore a green sweater. The other people remember it was a black sweater. Some people will say, oh, they didn't even have a sweater. It's because perception is everything and perception is your reality and only your reality. That is it. And so I think what you do with menopause is so great because menopause is an individual experience.
And that's exactly what I talk about, exactly what you said, is perception. And the reason it's my story, and I'm just sharing my story. This is where I was, and this is, what's worked for me to get me out of it kind of thing. And if this resonates with you, I love that, right? It's the purpose. It's actually not about me. It's to help you or whoever, right? To other people. But that was the main thing is once I changed my perception about it, and in my case at the time the people around me as well, that helped lift things, change things, and improve things. And then I was able to use the other tools and all that. But I mean, we call it manifestation, but they're actually scientifically proven tools, right? When you know that when we calm our body, cortisol levels, that's all a scientific thing. If you meditation and those things are actually scientific things, which you really want to drum it up. But it's all around that perception. And when we change the perception on how we think about something, it really does open a whole new world, a much happier, healthier, because then those perceptions become choices.
If we're talking about perceptions leading to choices, like I think this is where a lot of people get lost in it is they believe that things are happening to them, right? And they're not taking ownership that they have a choice. Nobody said the choices were going to be easy. Nobody said the choices were gonna make sense. Nobody said that the choices made in that moment would be the right choice, but choices are there, and we always have a choice. There's no situation where you have no choice. Even the decision to make no choice is still a choice. That's what I don't think people understand. Yeah, like, they don't understand that by not making a choice, you're still making a choice.
You're still making a choice. Or letting somebody else choose for you instead of you making the choice. I did go through a phase like that when I really just wasn't, I went through a period where I just didn't care.
So when you're in that part of your life where just so exhausted, you're in the brain fog, you're just over it. And you're like, I don't know, I don't care. I want you to stop yourself. So we're going to do a halting and a redirection. So what I mean by halting is there's actually a time in my life because I have post concussion syndrome because I was an MMA fighter. So I got hit a lot. I used to wear an elastic around my wrist. And anytime I would say the words, I don't know or I don't care, I would snap it, disrupting the thought in my brain that I don't know and I don't care. Because I do. Deep down, you do know the answer. You do care because I mean, how many times have I watched women in my life be like to their spouses, "Oh, like the spouse, like, oh, what would you want for dinner? Oh, I don't care." And then they make something and they're like, "Oh, I didn't really want that." You do know, you do have the answer. But here's what you need to do is that you need to snap that elastic. I used to live with one on my wrist, and this is actually probably why I ended up with permanent bracelets on my wrist because I was like, I'm not used to having nothing there. But I would snap the hair elastic and I would say, on second thought, so we've snapped, which is you're halting, right? We're stopping, disrupt the thought pattern. Then I go on second thought, right? So now I'm bringing back in that prefrontal cortex, that logical brain, and I'm saying, actually, there's a different way to think about this. On second thought, I do know what I want. I'm just feeling like I'm in decision debt. So I'm going to take a moment to think about what I want. And inevitably, you will come up with your answer. And if you truly don't have an answer, you'll be like, "There's not an answer coming to me, so I'm going to leave it in your field to decide, and I will go with whatever you say." But that means you can't if you at any point after that go, "Ugh," or, "Oh, I didn't really want that," and that's on you because you chose to give up your decision making rights at that moment, and at that point, you can't complain, right? So, like, this happened yesterday with actually my husband and I. We were out doing Christmas shopping for the boys, had a babysitter, and he's like, "What do you want for lunch?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And then instantly I was like, "Ariel, you do know." And then I was like, "You know what? Actually, it's not that I don't know, it's that I don't have a preference for what we eat. However, I do have a preference on timing and logistics. So, I don't care what we eat because I like food and food is great, but I do care where it fits in our schedule. So, how about this? We're going to Chapters and there's a really nice sushi place right there that we haven't tried yet. Let's go there." So, I didn't wanna make a decision on what we ate, but I did wanna make a decision on the logistics, and I think that this is where people get caught up. They get caught up in the, "Well, I don't really care what we eat." Well, you do care. It just might not be about the food that you're ingesting. It might be about the logistics, the timing, how long it takes. Do you wanna eat healthy or junk food? There's so many other things you have to think about other than the question of what do you wanna eat. Halt your thought. Redirect by saying, on second thought, bring your prefrontal cortex back online. And if you need to, take a minute to think about it. You don't have to answer right in that second. And if you do have to take a second to answer right then and there, take a deep breath in and ask yourself internally, what do I want? What do I truly want? What matters to me right now? And the answer will come to you. Even if the answer is, you know what, actually, it doesn't really matter to me which way this goes. I'm giving up the control on this one.
Yeah, I'm flexible or whatever. I have to ask you this though, and part of that exercise is the snap. There's going to be probably a slight, well, depending how hard you snap it, a slight discomfort with that. Does that slight discomfort allow you to gives you in a physical association? I don't want to call it pain either.
It's a negative reinforcement. I'm saying something that I don't wanna say. I'm breaking a habit. So, by disrupting your train of thought, by disrupting this cycle that you're in, the slight pain, like, we're not, like, pulling it out to here and, like, causing welts. It can be a simple little slap. It can be a simple little pinch. Anything to disrupt the cycle, and the pain, it shouldn't be painful. discomfort is a really good word because in order to disrupt a thought pattern, we must become and create discomfort. So what we're doing is we're halting that thought by creating a little bit of discomfort, which kind of snaps us out of this emotional brain, the monkey brain, lizard brain, whatever you want to call it. And then when we see on second thought, we're actually moving the thought processes back to our prefrontal cortex, which is where our logical brain sits, where we can actually look at things from a different point of view. You're disrupting the emotional brain, which is your survival brain, who doesn't give a shit what happens to you. Its only mission is to keep you alive. And when somebody says, "What do you want to eat?" in its actual operations, it's like, "Oh my God, there's a saber-toothed tiger chasing us. We're gonna die." But that's not actually what's happening. You're just being asked what you want to eat, and you're feeling overwhelmed and tired because you're in brain fog or whatever else is happening in your life. So by snapping that, disrupting that thought pattern, and then saying on second thought, you are bringing yourself back into logical brain where you can make decisions.
Thank you so much for sharing that because that's a really important thing. I think to do at any time, but especially during this time, it's one of the things I'm talking about, making those conscious choices. This is a tool that or technique that can help you do that. You bring yourself back. It's like we all get caught up and get into the negative mind, right? The negative mind starts taking over. Same exact thing. Use that tool, whatever, you're pausing to come back and say, okay, let's reframe this. Let me, think about this again in a more positive, impactful, whatever way. So that's a fantastic tool. Thank you so much. I could be used in so many different ways.
It can be used for eating, like if you're like a nighttime snacker. Right? All of a sudden, when you're like, "I'm gonna go grab those chips." Boom, snap. Okay, that's my emotional brain taking it. On second thought, am I actually hungry or am I maybe just thirsty or feeling some emotions because I was scroll holing in the doom scroll and saw a bunch of women who are 50 who have a six pack and I don't have a six pack and now I feel shitty about myself, so I'm gonna eat to self sabotage anyways. Like, do you see how once you've disrupted that thought, you can now think outside the box? And that's what that technique.
So disrupting is a key thing, stopping, pausing, gathering yourself, say, okay, is this really what I want to do? Is this really what I want to eat right now? Do I really want to treat my body like that right now? What do I want to do? So with that, where can we find Ariel has social information, but quickly website is
My website is super simple, so it's www.thearielbalfour.com. So thearielbalfour.com, thearielbalfour.com. And making it even simpler, you can find me on Instagram at thearielbalfour as well. So it's super simple to find me. I answer all my Instagram messages, and no, I don't use a bot because I think bots are stupid. Every single time you reach out, you're gonna get real, authentic Ariel, and that might be something as simple as, like, "I fucking resonate with this, I will be back in here to answer later," right? But either way, you will get a real answer. So those are the 2 fastest ways to get a hold of me, and on my website, there are a ton of free downloadable tools, EFT tappings, meditations, you name it, it's there. I believe that this should be accessible to everyone and anyone.
thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, and we'll make sure we'll have all those links dropped in the description below. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone who has watched us. Make sure you check out Ariel, follow her, find her books, and even hire her. She's amazing. I'd like to thank my guest, the Ariel Balfour, for today's wonderful conversation. And please, as always, remember self love first. Bye for now.